Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Live It Up, the show where we explore and discuss how to take your life to that next level and beyond. We cover health, wealth, relationships, and how to create a life you absolutely love. I'm your host and coach, Fletcher Ellingson. Amy will be joining us after the commercial break as we talk about an issue that affects an estimated 40 million adults in our country. That's right, 40 million people struggle with anxiety. That's a high number. It's hard for me to believe that. So let's find out, what is anxiety and what is there to do about it? Amy will give us all the details. Remember, health is the first wealth, so stick around. But before we get to that, I want to remind you that if you have questions that you would like us to answer on or off the air, you can email them directly to me at fletcher@fletcherellingson.com. You can also visit fletcherellingson.com and check out all the cool free resources there to get you in a positive state of mind, all right? Let's get to today's email. It says, "Hello, Fletcher. Most all of my family live within a 60-mile radius, so we have a lot of opportunities to see each other for holidays, birthdays, kid events, etc. This is a positive and a negative. I love my family, but almost without exception, anytime we get together, even to celebrate a kid's birthday, conversation turns to politics or religion and things escalate. People start pointing fingers and accusing. This has been going on for several years and it really feels yucky. If I'm honest with myself, I really don't look forward to the get-togethers anymore, and I don't like my kids seeing a bunch of adults arguing all the time. But if I make up an excuse to not attend, then my family's feelings get hurt, so I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I'm not sure what to do with these crazy family dynamics. What do you think I should do?" Signed, Caught in the Middle. All right, caught in the middle. First of all, thanks for reaching out. Reaching out or asking for advice is a sign of strength, so that means you are strong. Okay, now let's get all this sorted out. So you feel like your family get-togethers degrade into arguing, pointing fingers, and accusations. I get that. And I can see that would be pretty yucky to be around, and I wouldn't want my kids to be around that either. In fact, I was in a similar situation at one point in my life. There were specific family members that would consistently choose to look on the negative and instigate arguments. And what I chose to do was help or attempt to break those patterns when we got together. I'll give you an example of what I did. I would suggest to play games which put the focus on something other than politics and gossip. And at special holiday events like Christmas, I would suggest that we go around the room and share what had gone well that year, or what interesting books we'd seen, or goals had we achieved, or what we were excited to do in the upcoming year. It really takes the focus off of negativity and what is coming up or what worked well. So now you are a part of the family, and it sounds like you're going to need to step up and do one of a few things. Number one, address the situation. Yeah, that could be scary to do, so you'll need to step into courage and do it anyway. Chances are that there are others in your family that feel the same way you do, and they don't want to see all that arguing going on either. So it comes down to your standards. If you don't do anything about it, then you're complacent and you're willing to settle for this. And the example you're setting for your kids is that this type of behavior is okay. If you speak up, then you at least have the opportunity to have the family get-togethers go another way. But you have to address it. You just have to. You have to interrupt the pattern and ask yourself, what can you do to bring a different dynamic to the event? The second option is that you can do is to help the group set up a specific group intention. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you an example. When our family goes on vacation or weekend getaways, we frequently will sit down before the vacation starts and we'll say, all right, what kind of trip do we want to have? And what kind of trip are we willing to create? And it's a powerful action to take because it interrupts old patterns of running on autopilot. And we begin to intentionally create the vacation before we've even left. And some common answers are, well, I want to create a vacation full of connection or fun or silliness or adventure, relaxation, exploration. And then we also talk about what ways of being would be needed to create that vacation, such as I'd have to be willing, or I'd have to be respectful, or adaptable, or considerate. Now, some people may hear this and go on and say, oh, right, like my family's gonna sit down and have a conversation like this. Well, yeah, it may be different, but it has been extremely beneficial. Because let's face it, going on vacation, as much as we love it and want to go, it can be, there can be times of stress and challenge. But if we've said all these things out loud before we went out on vacation and committed to them, then we can hold ourselves and each other accountable to them. We at least tell our brain what we're intending to create. And remember, the brain is a goal-achieving machine, so there's value in declaring these things out loud to the group. You can do the same thing for your family. It takes practice. It might be uncomfortable, but you can do it, okay? Yeah, they might think you're weird or they might laugh, but just trust the process. And some of them are gonna really appreciate it. And you certainly don't have anything to lose, right? So I'm telling you, it can work. And what a great example you'll set for your kids. They'll be able to contrast that to what they've been witnessing. And finally, let me give you one more option. If nothing changes, then get clear about your standards. You don't have to attend every gathering. You don't have to stay until the end. Stay as long as people are getting along and as long as you're comfortable. If things begin to go sideways, then you always have the option to pack up and leave. You can let the family know that you don't want to participate in the conversations that are currently happening or the actions that you're seeing. You don't want to be a part of tearing other people down. And if you do this once or twice, it's going to send a clear message that you're serious, and it may impact future behaviors and future get-togethers. So get clear on what you are willing to settle for, and be a good example and a source of contribution. Make sense? I hope so. Now get into action and make the difference for your family. You can do this, and I believe in you. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, but we are going to be back with Amy. We're going to be talking about anxiety, so stick around. Hey everybody, welcome back to Live It Up. We're back here with Amy. Hey Amy.
Hello.
Good to see you.
You too.
So tell us what we're talking about today.
We're talking about anxiety disorder, or generalized anxiety disorder, also called GAD.
Generalized anxiety disorder, GAD.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So first of all, what is anxiety disorder?
So when you call it a disorder, you're calling it, it's at least in the medical field, that's a more specific term, because we've all had moments of anxiety, of course, right? Like you're late for something, or you're having to talk to someone about something that you're nervous about, or you're waiting for a test result, and where your mind's just kind of looping and worry and concern. So and then all of us are obviously on a spectrum. Some may worry more than others. But the hallmark of an actual generalized anxiety disorder is that it's persistent, excessive, and intrusive. And there are official criteria to be diagnosed, meaning that...
Let's say that again. Persistent,
excessive, and intrusive. Intrusive meaning like you can't even, like you might just be feeling like you're minding your own business and the worry just pops into your head,
Mm-hmm.
And so the official criteria would be that that there's this presence of excessive anxiety on a variety of topics, and it's occurring more often than not for 6 months, at least 6 months. And then usually, and so and the worry is very challenging to control. So then if you're an adult, you need to have at least 3 of the following physical or mental symptoms, which would be edginess or restlessness, feeling more fatigued than usual, impaired concentration, irritability, increased muscle aches or soreness, difficulty sleeping. And then if you're a child, you just need to have one of those physical symptoms along with the excessive worry. And obviously it can't be that you're in a war zone or something. I mean, the worry is not proportionate to actually what's going on usually. Mm-hmm. That there's not a specific threat actually happening and you're still having this worry. You can also kind of generalize it that someone is going to spend more of their waking hours than not in a state of worry.
That sounds extremely unpleasant.
It is, and you can see why you'd be tired because you obviously maybe don't sleep, plus your mind is just going and your sympathetic nervous system is always going. And then also why people will come and sometimes and tell me they think they have memory issues, but actually what's happening is either with depression or anxiety, your mind is kind of going, so you're unable to concentrate on what's going on. And so if you're not paying attention, then you feel like you have a memory issue, but it really was the fact that in that moment you weren't paying attention to what was being said, and so therefore you forget it later. Wow.
You know, when we first talked about taking on this topic for the show today, and I started reading a little bit about it, one of the stats said 40 million adults suffer from this disorder in our country.
Yeah.
It's like 18%.
Yeah.
Super high. And as you began to describe it, because at first I was like, well, what is it? What is a disorder? Like, I mean, are people just stressed out? But when you're going over all the descriptions, and I think about the conversations I have with people during the day, yeah, there's a lot of people have this going on in their noggin. So, and is this different than stress?
Yeah, because, you know, the stress is maybe like a normal response to something that's going on that might be unusual. And it hopefully isn't like your whole day, and you usually can control it, and then it's usually immediately better after something is handled or managed. So again, when the other thing I was going to say is that for a temporary kind of anxiety, we will call it an adjustment disorder. So say something happens like you lost your job, or someone in your family has died, or you're getting a divorce. People will definitely have a period of time, but usually it's going to be for less than 6 months, where they maybe can't eat well, can't sleep well, all that kind of stuff. So that's what we call that an adjustment disorder with anxiety. But it's not quite generalized anxiety disorder, which is more pervasive and more long-term.
Gotcha. So how often do you see this in your practice?
I mean, I see it a lot. And I see it a lot. And a lot of people have just lived with it for a really long time, and they're kind of labeled worriers, or everyone in their family knows they worry too much, and they have a hard time sleeping because their mind's just looping and looping and looping, which again, of course, we've all had times like that.
Yeah.
But it's just that for these people, it happens almost every night, and more often than not. So, and like you said, about 18% of the population has this issue. And then the other thing that I definitely see it in teenagers, you can see it in young children, and in younger children, it might be that they'll express this concern about natural disasters, or about their parents dying, or their family dying. And of course, again, there are times where your kid watches a special on TV or something, and then they're afraid of earthquakes. But this is going to be something that it might be earthquakes one week, something else the next week, and where they're constantly worried.
It's preoccupation with something terrible that could happen.
Yeah.
So you touched on this already a little bit, but just clarify, why is it called a disorder? I mean, some people just might feel anxious, but what's the defining characteristic of a disorder?
Yeah, so usually, I mean, just in general, it's even for depression and all kinds of things, people will ask me, do I think that they have this condition or the other? So when it becomes a disorder, like we said, when number one, it's going to be long term. So it's going to be months and months and months. So 6 months. It's also going to be more often than not in your day. So it's very pervasive. It's happening almost all the time. And the third thing that usually goes along with having a disorder is that it negatively impacts some aspect of your life, if not multiple aspects of your life, meaning like your ability to perform at work, your ability to have successful and happy, fulfilling relationships, your ability to parent well. Like all people come in, say, with depression and irritability, and it's affecting their ability to parent, or it may affect your sleep. So it also becomes it's an issue that needs to be really handled when it's having a negative consequence in your life.
Yeah, it's like really getting in the way of...
It's getting in the way, right,
Gotcha.
of having the life that you want to have.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what causes it.
Yeah, so the exact cause isn't really known, but there are some contributing factors. Number one, genetics. So family history definitely can play a role. So if it tends to run in your family, you might have a higher tendency.
That was surprising to me, because I thought I didn't think that would be a contributing factor. I thought it was just all about how you're processing the world, a lifestyle, basically. So
Yeah, definitely. I'm not lifestyle, because you think about your brain is how you process the world, and your brain is genetically
yeah, I guess
determined, right? So how the levels of your neurotransmitters, how your synapses work, blah blah blah. That all of that is there is a genetic component of it. The other thing would be your brain chemistry. This isn't really a cause, but this is more of like what's happening, that the different levels of neurotransmitters are going to be different in each person, and that seems to be what's going on with the anxiety disorder. And the connections in between the synapses, there may be something different about those than in other people. And then environmental factors, I mean, these aren't causes, but they can contribute. I mean, potentially a cause, say you had something happen early on in life, like some terrible abusive situation, or something that happened that was very impactful. Maybe it could lead to that, but otherwise it more of just as it contributes. So say you have an underlying kind of flavor of general of anxiety, but you're managing well, but then you change a job or move or change schools, it can really unmask that.
Okay, so there's probably some people listening right now, and
Yeah.
they're probably thinking, geez, that sounds like me.
Yeah.
How do I know if I have what's considered a disorder?
So, obviously, because I am a PCP, my first response would be go see your primary care doctor. I can't even tell you, I can't count how many times I've had people tell me, I've never told anyone this before, and then they proceed to tell me something. So should be, hopefully, in your relationship with your PCP, that it's a safe and trusting relationship. So, and we use questionnaires, usually at the beginning, before the doctor or provider comes in the room. There's something called the PHQ-9, which is a screen for depression, and there's a GAD-7, which is a screen for anxiety. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily, but you could fill out a GAD-7 online and see if you're like, gosh, I probably should go see my doctor. So after you do those questionnaires, that's kind of a starting point for us before we go into the room. And then I just, then you listen to people and hear what their symptoms are like. And again, see if it's something that maybe could just be managed with some lifestyle changes and therapy, or if it's something that really they're to the point where they want to consider medication.
All right, good. So that's a good stopping point. So that's what anxiety is. If you're curious about it, if you got it, see your PCP. When we get back, we're going to talk about what there is to do about it. So stick around. Hey everybody, welcome back to Live It Up. We are here with Amy, and we're talking about anxiety, what it is, and what can we do about it. And right now we're going to talk about, all right, so we've been diagnosed. What is there to do? Does a person need to take some sort of medication for this?
Well, medications and therapy are going to be the mainstays of treatment for GAD. And especially for people who are having issues with their daily functioning, where this is interfering with their daily function, medications would be considered. One of the medication type that we use is kind of an as-needed medication. So say you're having symptoms less than once a week, you might, and you don't have any issues with addiction, or any interactions with medications, you could potentially be put on a medication that you can take just as needed. Like if you got really anxious and you couldn't calm yourself down. So those are more in the sedative family. The main medications we use are the medications same that we use for depression, and they're usually SSRIs. So that's going to be like Paxil, Effexor, Prozac, Lexapro, Zoloft, Cymbalta. And those medications are that you take every day, and they should bring that anxiety level way down. Like what I've had people tell me is say, gosh, I didn't know that my brain could be so quiet. I didn't know those voices could quiet way down. I didn't know that I could go lay down at night and not have like just this looping. So it can really be a relief for people to have for maybe one of the first times that they can remember where their brain is just quiet, more so than just always worrying.
That's a big difference. I'm assuming that some people hearing this think, well, that's pretty cool, but geez, does that mean I'm going to have to be on these drugs for the rest of my life, or what?
Yeah, so I hear that a lot, where people, their main objection is, well, gosh, I heard that once I get on these, I can never come off. Well, what I usually say is, number one, well, yeah, if your anxiety disorder never goes away, then you do need to be on them for the rest of your life. But there's no reason that you can't try to come off of them under the supervision of your provider. The ones that you take daily, they definitely can have some withdrawal symptoms if you stop them abruptly after being on them for a long period of time. But or even a year or even a little bit less. But usually you can just wean off of them within 2-3 weeks, not a big deal. there's ways to do that easily where you shouldn't have any side effects. So it's definitely not true that you can't come off of them.
When somebody starts taking this medication, how long before they see a difference or feel a difference?
Usually within a couple of weeks for anxiety, a little bit longer for depression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say there's obviously people out there that don't want to go the medication route. What can they do?
Well, so cognitive behavioral therapy is highly effective for anxiety disorder and a lot of other like phobias and that kind of thing. So I would strongly recommend that. Along with medication is a great combination. And even without medication, that's going to be where you're going to start to learn some of these pathways, figure out why you react a certain way, and then be able to interrupt that pattern and react in a different way. So cognitive behavioral therapy is going to be really effective.
And would it be advisable to do that whether you're on the drugs or not?
Yes, for sure, yeah.
And what lifestyle changes can people do so they can begin to feel better on their own?
Yeah, so we always like to talk about lifestyle changes because then it helps you feel empowered that you can do something for your own health. So, and it's kind of the same stuff that helps with lots of other things we've talked about. So sleep, we all know that poor sleep affects mood. We need restorative sleep for the brain to be balanced and functioning correctly. So people that don't get adequate sleep or quality of sleep do have a higher chance of having major depression, which is frequently linked with anxiety. And then also people who are sleep deprived tend to interpret things more negatively than those who have slept well. So I think we all probably know this, like if you're in a really bad mood from not sleeping well, things kind of, you don't cope as well, you have less patience, so that can really get to you. Food and drink, so we are what we eat, like we've talked about, so making sure you're eating a balanced diet, eating lots of whole foods. Caffeine can make anxiety worse, alcohol can make it worse. And a lot of, when people eat a lot of sugar, a lot of carbs, you can get these mood swings and concentration and energy swings, and that can make anxiety worse. As you might imagine, exercising is a really good way to release some of those anxious feelings and those anxious kind of chemicals in your body. Also doing things that are calming, like yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong. Those are ways to kind of have a calming exercise.
Yeah, I mean, I know when I start racing, it's good for me to get out and go for a walk or a run.
Yeah.
And even though it's like very active, it does have the effect of calming my mind down a little bit.
It does. You can kind of look at it where like you're kind of revved up and it helps expend some of that energy. And then I also find, again, I see this a lot where I'm somewhat surprised where people feel like they don't have anyone they can talk to. And so usually after just telling me something in the office, people will say they feel better. And so sharing what's going on is really important. So and what I usually tell people, they say, well, I don't want to dump on anyone. I don't want to give someone this burden, is, just tell them, listen, I don't, let me put a ground rule down. I'd like to share with you. I need to get it off my chest. I don't need you to fix anything, give me any solutions. I don't need you to take on my problems. I just want to share. And then it feels good sharing it. You can also journal, and that's another way of just getting it out of your brain. And the last thing would be meditation and deep breathing. Obviously, again, when you learn how to cut that sympathetic nervous system tone in your body, it's going to help calm your brain down, calm your mind down. And when you know how to do that, you can then call upon that in settings when you're feeling really anxious and you know how to do deep belly breathing or counting down in your head. If you have those things practiced, that when you find yourself kind of revved up in that anxious state, you can do the things that, and your brain and body are like, oh, we know how to do this. We can calm down because we're practiced at doing it.
Right. Yeah, and it's all about practicing, right? Repetition is a mother of skill. It may seem awkward at first, but practice, and it'll become second nature, and you'll get some results.
Yeah, and there's lots of information about generalized anxiety disorder online, so you can Google it, look it up, read about it, see if it feels like it fits you, and then go talk to your doctor.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's time now to get out there, be a source of kindness, contribution. You have something to offer this world, and we believe in you.